The title of my talk is Computing the Future, Digital Encounters in Art and Science When Da Vinci Meets Turing. And before I give my little introduction there, I just want you to note, I put this little picture of singing in the rain with COVID. And I want to tell you in advance that there are a few poems that I've put into this talk to kind of break up and bring in a little bit of artificial imagination into my talk. And I think just to bring, or some playfulness, you might say. So I'm going to take this little, I have to fix up my screen here. Oops, I didn't mean to do that yet. Okay, so here's my little introduction. Computing the future. As life and research move to the internet, we are engaged increasingly in digital encounters from present to past and into the future with real people, events, and documents. This paper focuses on newly born digital relationship between Alan Turing, father of computer science, and Leonardo da Vinci, master of Renaissance art and science, both revered as visionary geniuses, prophets of the future. And as I said, I include 3 of my poems, a bit of imagination and emotion. Okay. So let's see, we move on. I want to take the chat. Oops. There. So in this first slide, the left side of the slide is Da Vinci, and the right side of the slide we see Turing. And we're going to look at their archives, codices, and manuscripts making connections via the global digital ecosystem, finding commonalities, communication, context, and content. And we see here on the Da Vinci side a self-portrait of Da Vinci that he did in red chalk on paper, 1510. And beside that, we see the cover of his Codex Atlanticus, which is now in the Biblioteca Ambrosiana in Milan. This codex, the Codex Atlanticus, is his most extensive compilation of his work, 1,119 pages. And between the Biblioteca Ambrosiana and the Visual Agency, a software company, they've produced a digitization of this huge codex that is really, I think, a kind of almost like a model, a very wonderful way to do it. So in theory, if I click on this, it should come up on the screen in 1 minute here. Can you see this? Wait, it's not up yet. Here it comes. So here's the visualization. And each little rectangle here with different colors represents 1 page of this codex, Da Vinci's codex. And what they did was have color coding of the 5 subject areas that are the broadest. The first, green, geometry and algebra, then physics and natural sciences, tools and machines, architecture, and human sciences. So the way this works is I can see when I put my cursor on something, I can see that this is page 30 and this is 31. So let's say I want to explore page 31. I just click on it. And there it is. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, I can continue on numerically with page 32, 33, etc. And then here I have similar pages. This is, you have to go on the site and experiment with this because that allows you to look at all of there's so many pages, but to find the specific ones that the AI is controlling this will say, this is very much related. Now, if I go back, and there's many, so you can see recto verso. So when you have 1,119 pages, it's actually one number of pieces of paper will be half that, recto and verso. So I go back, I'm returning now to the general view, and I just want to point out one other thing. I'm not going to linger too long on this. I really recommend that you look through this. It's coming back. Also, this collaboration, I think, is something that's going to become more and more common. A technology software type team with the experts in the subject area and in Da Vinci, or whatever that subject area is. And here we have the pages by number, and here we have by date. So 1478 to 1518. So it covers basically to the end of his life. He died in 1519, and last year was the celebration of 500 years since his death. So there were many, many exhibitions, and I'll show a little bit about that. Okay, so now let me get this, just 1 second here. Okay, I'm taking this down in my little presentation, coming back to that. So the idea that we now have, and there are many other, quite a few of the codices have been digitized, actually most of them. There are a few that are still in the works, but you have access to this material produced 500 years ago, open free access, and you can use the material in any way you want. So this is really a revolutionary thing in terms of research. Now, for the research I've done on Da Vinci and then with Turing, you have the Turing archives, and they're very complete. They're at Cambridge University at King's College. Now here you have this little picture comes from a sale that was done in 2015 at Bonham's in New York, and it was of an unknown manuscript notebook of Alan Turing, which had been hidden for many years. I'm not going to get into the history of that, but Turing did this notebook when he was at Bletchley Park in approximately 1944. It sold at Bonham's for over $1 million. But what's so important is that it's the only real manuscript kind of a codex. And Andrew Hodges, who's an expert on Turing, wrote that this manuscript, here's what he wrote about it, it ranks as one of the most important scientific discoveries of our time, a Da Vinci Codex for the modern era. And so right now, if we're moving from present to past and back into present, we can look at this work of Da Vinci, but we can't see this work of Turing because it's not online, it's not digitized. I think that's a really interesting thing. And it's not even available if you went to the Turing archives. So there's still a lot of old stuff that's very hidden. But increasingly, as things get digitized, these types of online encounters, new juxtapositions of knowledge and information happen more and more often. So I thought this was really exciting. I didn't know about this. And hopefully looking ahead, it will be available. Now, more comparisons between Da Vinci and Turing. So here we have the left side is Turing, the right side is Da Vinci. And Alan Turing, in his last part of his life, last few years, 2 years really, he was very interested in embryology and patterns. We just had a talk on patterns, particularly in nature. So the sunflower is a wonderful example of that. And Turing worked from a very fine photograph, very detailed photograph of a sunflower. And that photograph is in the Turing archives. And he was studying the spiral patterns. And here in this bottom section here is a detail from his drawing. What's one detail? I don't know if you can see this, but there are all these little dots with numbers. So he was creating a kind of a mathematical perspective of the patterns of the sunflower, and how that sunflower develops these, looking at the embryology of it. So this really connects with Da Vinci. So we have Alan Turing going back centuries, and I'm going to read now from the Da Vinci Codex, a section where he talks about this. He says, all seeds have the umbilical cord, which breaks when the seed is ripe. And in like manner, they have matrix and secundia, which grow in pods. But those which grow in shells have the umbilical cord long in their infancy. So when we talk about shells, we can see eggshells here in the Da Vinci drawing. And this is his drawing of Leda and the swan from the Greek mythology. And actually, he did a painting of this, which is lost. And some of his colleagues and his students took this drawing and did their own versions of Leda and the Swan. Very beautiful Renaissance painting. But you can see here's Leda cuddling up to the swan. And then you have all of these little shells breaking open with human babies coming out of the shells. And I thought that was really fascinating, particularly when you put it together with his text. And here's the head of Leda. So I'm going to read you my little poem about this when digital Da Vinci meets Turing. Touched by nature, new nomenclature, algorithms and computation traveling in a sea of zeros and ones, unknown destination, seeking integration of science and art. Da Vinci and Turing writing in code, revealing secrets of art and life a la mode, from inside out, what's life about? The process of creation, human instigation, mirrors of the mind, identity undefined, real and artificial, feeling physical, it's all about love. And I think that Turing and Da Vinci would agree with that. It's all about love. And it was love that they had and passion for their work. And that was their inspiration. Now we move to this is a totally Da Vinci slide, but it also connects with the previous slide. Here on the left, you see a drawing from the Windsor Library notebook. So that would be the Queen's collection. And last year, because it was the 500th anniversary of Da Vinci, there was a wonderful show at the Queen's Gallery of Da Vinci drawings, and featured in that were a series of drawings of the fetus in the womb. And you see one of them there. When you look at it, it strikes you that it looks like the fetus is in a shell, like a pod almost. And there's a lot of writing about this. And Da Vinci does quite a bit of writing about the fetus in the womb. And I quote one little section. So he writes that it is the soul of the mother which first constructs within the womb the shape of the man, and in due time awakens the soul that is to be its inhabitant. I found this pretty astonishing, that he's speaking of the soul of the fetus, the embryo, not the embryo, but the fetus, the child. This is a drawing, was made sometime between 1510 and 1513. And what they did for this show, they had a contest. Just give me 1 second here. I need to bring up some notes. Oops. What's happening to my computer? Okay, so I'm now, okay. So they decided that viewers that looked at this drawing, if they were inspired, they would write a poem and send it into what was established as a poetry contest. And it was judged by Clive Wilmer, British poet and fellow at Cambridge University. And he wrote, and I quote, "Most of the poets were either appalled or fascinated by the creative mind the drawing suggests, the emotional detachment needed, the precision of hand and eye, the reverence for life." And I read the poems that were submitted, and I thought he was very accurate, particularly in the emotional detachment that they saw, that they projected that Da Vinci had with his subject. And one thing I point out is of all the Da Vinci paintings, and there aren't very many, 10 out of 14 are about the mother and child picture, have something to do with that subject. So he was incredibly connected. So I thought, and this is the poetry contest was over, but I thought, I think I'm going to write my own poem because I have a very different feeling about this. I want it to be a conversation between the mother and the child. And so here's my little poem here. First, the child. The mother speaks first to her child, and then the child speaks to the mother. So, and you have to look at the drawing. My child, cry not silently. I can't see your face, can't embrace, your head hangs down. Your face hidden between hands, no Instagram. My mother, dreaming of you, I hear your silent voice. Hold me close, lift me up. Let me breathe, breathe in your smell. Hold me close to your breast. Let me drink your heavenly nectar of life and think of you. And so that was my poem. And then next to here we see a painting of the Virgin of the Rocks, completed in 1508. It's at the National Gallery. It was the second version that Da Vinci did. The first one is in the Louvre. And this series of drawings, as I said, was featured in the Queen's Gallery show in 2019. Now we come to Turing and another exhibition, and this was a Barbican exhibition, Barbican, AI More Than Human. And this is a show I went to in summer of 2019. It's focused on AI development from the 1940s and 50s to present, especially at that point focusing on Alan Turing. And these are two works exhibited, which I photographed. And the first one, modeling AI from human neural networks. And certainly when you think of neural networks, you think of Alan Turing because he was really the first to make this connection between the human brain and the you might say artificial brain or artificial intelligence. So this was really, I thought, very interesting. So what I'm going to read now is from the plaque that was on the wall next to this work. Unlocking the brain. The human brain is an incredibly sophisticated machine that excels at a multitude of tasks. Scientists are attempting to recreate its most complex processes to potentially improve AI. I just thought that just struck me a little differently. Potentially improve AI. Will it improve real intelligence, human intelligence? Now here's a 1950s picture of Turing, and it's focusing on the Turing test, which still remains very important in AI work today. The Turing test, developed by Alan Turing in 1950, is a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to and indistinguishable from that of a human. And slowly, but perhaps unsurely, we're getting there. It depends what you're measuring, really. But there's been some studies that I know of with digital art, and there have been quite a few works where humans could not detect the difference between art made strictly by a human being and art made by AI. Now here's another connection between Turing and Da Vinci. I call it beyond human, robots then and now. So on the left, you see a robot from the AI More Than Human exhibition at the Barbican, and it's called Artificial Life. The broad research field of artificial life studies and simulates processes in nature. Often a speculative field, it explores existing and future forms of life. A life spans areas such as neural networks, themselves drawn from natural processes, but also biomimicry, genomic and synthetic biology, etc. And here, if you were at the exhibit, you would see this robot was life-size and was very impressive. It drew a lot of attention at the show. And next to that, we have the rendering of the robotic knight. And that robotic knight was drawn by Da Vinci, and a lot of text about it and drawings, and then recreated. In this, there are a number of recreations. This one was done in 2005 for an exhibit in Berlin. And so you have, based on the drawings by Leonardo, the robot is clad in German, Italian, medieval armor and is able to make several human-like motions. So when you think how advanced that was for its time, it's pretty shocking. Now we get to a well-known painting, and you see that even the Mona Lisa has to wear a mask these days. It's getting pretty bad. So computing the future post-COVID-19, life immersed in digits as computational culture morphs human identity and emotion. And here in the caption, I put Mona Lisa more than real. Da Vinci melds reality, imagination, and the science of painting. So within this painting, these are all melded together, and it comes to something that's quite astonishing, and it mesmerizes its audience. It's better without the mask. So this is my little imagination relative to this, to the COVID crisis and the Mona Lisa. And you in the audience, so I understand in the UK now is kind of fairly serious lockdown. When internet life becomes more than real, artificial life becomes more than human. Robots make things, birds still sing, humans hide, no free ride. Lock them down, going to drown in tears and fears. How many years can this last? Present to past. Let's ask Turing and Da Vinci, how can we survive keeping love alive? And so this is the question of the day. It's for you to answer. Okay, moving along. How am I doing on time? Good thing I had a little extra time. I'm gonna just, no, I don't. I think I'm gonna have to go very fast now. So this is computing the future again, from post-digital to post-COVID. Will human life be increasingly challenged by computational culture? And these are two pictures. On the left is New York in the protests, Black Lives Matter protest. On the right is Philadelphia from November 5, 2020. Also Black Lives Matter protest. And this is an area that I've looked at a lot and written about in the book, Museums and Digital Culture book, published by Springer, which I co-edited with Jonathan Bowen. There's a chapter on contested space, protest and activism. And last year I gave a paper at EVA on art and activism in museums. So here's my last slide. And what I found very interesting about this is a picture of Turing I had never seen. This is Alan Turing walking in Cambridge. It came out of the sale catalog at Bonham's when they sold his manuscript notebook. So here he is in 1934, and it looks like he's walking towards us. And if you see the woman in the background there, she's sort of taking it as a double take. Oh my God, it's Alan Turing. And I think that was kind of a very interesting moment there. And let me just come to, I had a little thing that I noticed. And in the photo, to me anyway, Turing seems to be walking towards us. The woman in the background looks stunned. And I say this, he was indeed stunning in every way, brains and beauty, art, and computing the future. And that's my talk. Oops. Okay, now where's my screen disappeared. I'm going to take that down, and I want to go back. Where's my, I wanted to put up my chat, and I don't see my other screen here. That's my, are there any questions? I don't hear it. Was there anyone out there?
I'm still here.
Is there anybody listening?
I'm here as well, and I can see plenty of other people out. It's very interesting. Thank you.
I'm here as well.
Okay. I think
I'll ask my question rather than type it. Have you come across a book by Fritjof Capra about the science of Leonardo?
Which one is, there are a lot of, actually quite a few books about that, but
Capra has written a lot about systems thinking and systems theory, and he became very interested in Leonardo from his scientific perspective.
Well,
so, it's a very interesting book. He looks at the artworks, but also the science as well.
Yes, which he completely integrated. It was all part of the same thing. And his paintings, he actually writes that paintings that just paint the figure look flabby because behind them you don't really see the anatomy, the structure, the science, the body. And this was one of his great motivating forces. So, Jonathan, are you there?
I am, yes.
Okay. Do you have any comments on the Turing manuscript?
Tula,
yes.
would you let me make a comment, Terry Trickett?
Yes, of course.
I asked Sean if I could be beamed in, because I just wanted to say something about your wonderful poetic presentation and the memory of how, when Jonathan, in fact, in the virtual conference in Florence, which was earlier this year, he began to present the beginnings of these same ideas, in which you were drawing comparisons between Turing and Leonardo. Now, it's a great pity that it was a virtual conference, because I would loved to have seen the expressions on the faces of the Italians in that audience. What I'm trying to say is they were taken totally by surprise by the temerity of somebody coming from the UK and saying Turing is the modern day Leonardo. But the point is, you are absolutely right. And it was just that in his time, Leonardo was so far ahead of everybody else, hundreds of years ahead, that he didn't have the influence that you might expect just because he was so far advanced. Now, strangely enough, I think exactly the same thing applies to Turing. We're only just beginning to catch up now with some of the things that Turing said in the 30s, 40s, and early 50s before he died. And I think it is an absolute brilliant comparison to make between these two amazing people. And
Yes,
thank you, and Jonathan, for making it.
Thank you very much. I just see that in this environment now, these connections, that we're all living in this global ecosystem, and there's so much more information there that new things are being just juxtaposed and put together. But there are many, many other comparisons. You know, you only have a certain amount of time, but I just want to note one thing, that the London paper and the Florence paper are an A and B of sort of the same project.
I do understand that, yes.
Okay, so thank everybody. I lost my screen, so I don't know what's going on here. But that,
I just have one comment about the $1 million notebook.
oh, good.
That was owned by Robin Gandy, who was,
Yes.
I guess, one of Turing's only student, but they were also very good friends.
Yes.
And he also added notes to that notebook himself.
Yes.
And it's not all scientific. So
I
that
know.
may be one reason why, you know, it hasn't been revealed. But,
That's what they say.
certainly Robin Gandy didn't want it revealed during his lifetime.
That's
Obviously
right.
he's now dead. We've recently celebrated the centenary of Robin Gandy this year, in fact, in Oxford, just before lockdown.
So there was an exhibit of that manuscript in Bletchley Park, but there's another really interesting thing that relates to Turing and Da Vinci. In that notebook, section 3, it's in 3 sections. Turing writes from back to front, upside down from back to front. So it's almost like his last section is in code, but that was a period that he was under psychoanalysis, and those notes were also in the possession of Gandhi, and he felt that would have definitely, you know, Turing writing about his psychoanalysis would have been it wouldn't have been appropriate to put into the public. But from what I understand, the manuscript might now be being prepared for some kind of digitization project, hopefully. So have you?
Certainly, you know, they're obviously both now not with us anymore. So it's
I know that.
slightly different. Yeah.